Servus, hello, and bonjour. Matthias here, and this is Singletrack. We are live from Chamonix. Well, sadly not me. I'm here in the Singletrack global headquarters in Olympia, Washington, but my guest is Keith Laverty from Bainbridge, Washington, is sitting in his Airbnb just a few meters from the UTMB finish line in Chamonix. Coach Keith flew over to the Alps and is supporting a couple of his runners who ran TDS and OCC. It's the first time for Keith in Chamonix and the first time he's experiencing the Alps and the madness that is UTMB week. I wanted to check in with him and get his first impressions and the experience he had navigating it all, soaking it all in, and giving us a taste of what it means to stand on the sidelines in support of all these amazing athletes. Here at Singletrack, I've had a great pleasure to chat with several runners who in the past have run a UTMB race. I'll have links to all these interviews in the show notes, but I did want to mention them here on air before I get joined by Keith. Alex Borsak-Hasenor ran the tough TDS in 2021 and is currently in Chamonix supporting her friends while nursing an injury. Andrea Löw ran CCC in 2021. Moritz Aufderheide was signed up for OCC this year, but is also battling an injury and is in Chamonix with his Adidas Terex team in support. Matt Urbanski ran CCC in 2016 and DNF this year's TDS due to getting sick. Maria Dalsot ran OCC in 2021 and is running CCC this year, her first 100K and her first run through the night. Chrissy Moll, well, she won UTMB in 2013, the first UTMB ever. She also returned several years later to run it again. Hannes Namberger came in 6th last year at UTMB and is running in 2022 and is sort of my secret favorite to win it all. Eva Sperger DNF'd UTMB in 2019 and 2021 and is running this year's race and is clearly in it for redemption. All right, I hope I didn't forget anyone. Links to all these episodes you can find right in the show notes and at singletrack.fm. And now, as nightfall hits in Chamonix, here is Keith. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat and I've been glued all week. My back hurts. I think the reason why my back hurts is because I've been sitting on the edge of my seat all week because UTMB coverage has been absolutely off the chart this week, and I've been trying to capture everything that I possibly could glean from online chatter and everything. And I'm thousands of miles away. You had this insane opportunity to very last minute fly over, and you were actually calling in from Chamonix. This is insane.
Yeah, opportunity to travel with a good friend of mine from college, Kristen Schindler. And she just raced the OCC 56K, which is not your average 50K, that's for sure. So yeah, been coaching her this year, leading towards this event, and then also kind of got called last minute as well to crew for a previous guest of yours in the show, Matt Urbanski, for his TDS race. So that was a whole experience in itself too.
We have so much to talk about. Thank you so much for taking the time, because we're literally recording this Friday, 2 hours after the start of the UTMB. And as you're sitting in Chamonix, the first top runners of CCC are arriving at finish, and you could be at the finish line cheering for them, and instead you are somewhere in a room recording the show. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, if I open up my windows, I'm sure you could hear the announcers in the background. That's how close I am. So
that is so amazing. I wish I could. It would be good. We could put the microphone on. So I don't even know where to start. Let's start there. You you live in Bainbridge, so if you did this very last minute travel and stuff, was this a complete nightmare?
The flights and everything in the Airbnb were booked well in advance, but despite that, the travel there was honestly quite a nightmare. So starting with getting on the plane in Seattle, and then sitting there for an hour and a half, like inside the plane, waiting for the plane to take off. And it was supposed to be like a 10-hour flight. It was 11 and a half hours of being stuck in the middle seat.
Well, good thing you didn't go over there to race. So you only were there to crew and support. So people who arrived, I saw some Instagram messages from Maria Dalzot, who in previous years, she goes to Europe every year to race, but this year she left fairly late, and she also had, like, I think her luggage got lost and stuff, and so she had pretty big nightmare traveling. So at least you didn't have to race. So this first time for you in Chamonix, right?
That's correct, yeah.
I don't even know where to begin asking what kind of experience it is, because, I mean, it is trail running. I mean, of course, I don't know. Just explain to me. Why don't you just share a little bit? You arrive in Chamonix. Give us a little bit of how you feel.
Yeah, it's a lot of feelings. I think it's just like a smorgasbord of like excitement and anxiety and like trying to wrap my head around like how to get to places or how to do certain things. And I'm certainly somebody that does not speak French at all, so that's just another language barrier, which is obviously a common thing. My 8 years of Spanish did not pay off. And I think I'm talking with other American runners here too. I think for first timers, like it's not uncommon to feel, a little bit overwhelmed, just like over stimulus, like just so much going on. And so I think also trying to find that balance too of like, so, making sure I'm like taking time for myself to like get sleep and take some quiet time too, to help balance out from all the buzz and the excitement from the town of Chamonix.
I mean, it is a completely unique experience, right? I mean, Chamonix is a very small village in a valley. Mm-hmm. And to have an event sort of everything be so close together, there is no comparison, right? I mean, there is nothing like it for the trail running world because, I mean, Western States has a start and finish in 2 different locations. So even if everything begins in Tahoe, sort of the finish line festivities are 100 miles away, right? Where in here, everything is fully close together. You've mentioned a lot of emotions. You didn't mention enviness. And I mean this obviously in a nice way, but when you were there, do you wish you'd be running?
That's a great question. No, I'm actually okay with not racing. I think just, there's no pressure. I mean, running, preparing and racing for an ultra, there's always usually, plenty of pre-race jitters and anxiety that can come with it, like naturally. So I think that does kind of help just take the edge off. And, if I do return, someday to race myself, I think now I have a better idea on, what to expect and how to navigate my way through all the challenges of like the logistics and where to stay or like how to, like where things are around Chamonix, and there's just so much that goes into it. So I've been totally fine just to support others and soak in the scene and run the trails.
So in a sense, it's almost better to not have that additional pressure of also having to race, right? So being able to take it all in.
Yes.
But in your back of your mind, and obviously that's a little bit of an unfair question because everything is so fresh. Are you already looking at your future racing plans and you're like, okay, where do I get my index points and where do I get my running stones?
Yeah, you can say that. You can say the seed's been planted.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, right? I'm going to put you like right here on the map. But on the other side, it's emotional and it's in the moment. And I mean, who wouldn't be when you are kind of like thrown into an atmosphere like that? Let's make this a little bit practical. So you've been here for a few days, so you've spent your time probably doing three things, right? On one side, taking in the atmosphere and everything that's offered, running a little bit, so you actually got to get out on some trails, but then you're also there for support, right?
That's right.
So speak to, well, what should we tackle first? Let's speak to the trails. Why don't we speak about it? You saw some stuff, you got to see some trails. How was trail running in Europe?
It's pretty incredible. Yeah, I think there's plenty in the valley itself. I mean, if you want to do have a more tame day, you can definitely do that and keep it pretty flat, with like pretty runnable flat trails. And then, but yeah, I think what I've enjoyed is just everything, just the ease of vert that you can accumulate. Just everything from my Airbnb or from the backyard is just straight up to like a ski lift, and then from there there's just like a million different ways you can go, like more, you can go higher up, you can go further along the mountain that's like ups and downs. And I mean, I've also been so impressed with how like every intersection there's really clear signage. That's quite different from the US, like in my opinion, just like every intersection. So makes it easier to navigate for sure. And then that's true.
You just have to convert it into miles. If it's...
Right.
And you've had some pretty stunning weather too this week, right? I mean, it's now for UTMB, for the race, it's overcast, and the forecast looks for quite a bit of rain and stuff. But this week you've had some absolutely beautiful sunny days, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just been pretty idyllic, sunny, blue sky. You can get pretty warm, but nothing too crazy. Just making sure you bring enough water and electrolyte, and is packing a little bit more than you probably would just in case I do get lost. It's been really nice. And I think it has been a pretty dry summer here from what I've heard too.
Mm-hmm. It's been very, very dry. Many of the rivers have actually dried out in Europe. So sort of these crazy heat waves that we've had the last couple of years in the West Coast, they've sort of this year been in the Alps and or in all over Europe really. And one other really interesting aspect about towns like Chamonix is that they have gotten an embrace so early on the Olympic Games. I think Chamonix was the host city of the very first Winter Olympics.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so these cities. I mean, that was like in 1924 or something like this, right? And so I think these cities sort of embraced tourism and athleticism, sport, media, and stuff. So at an early day, and sort of grown with all of this. And because they've always been towns, and because they've always been connected to people actually living there, it's a very different atmosphere than if you go to Whistler or Palisades, Tahoe, those ski resorts that also wear Winter Olympic spots, but at a much later time because they're so remote. Like, I don't know if you've been at Broken Arrow. It's a nice place, but it's so remote that it's pretty dead around it, right? But Chamonix is a town where people live, and there is more than just a couple ski lifts and an après ski bar.
For sure. Yeah, there's like refugees and like little bars like just built into like the entire valley, like all along, like even just all along connecting trails between the small towns within the valleys. And ski lifts everywhere. I could definitely tell they prioritize like just like activity and like games and like everything from like just seeing like getting them preparing like this paintball section area and these other games, and very kid friendly as well. With
Chamonix being at the foot of the Mont Blanc, there is this town sort of, they're not really historically but pretty close to be the cradle of modern mountaineering. So this understanding of mountain sports is very much being a year-round activity and is very much sort of built into the town, and the town lives off of it, and the town embraces it and understands that it's part of their identity, right?
Totally.
Before we go into sort of kind of your professional roles in capacity of what you were doing or what you are doing in Chamonix currently, give us a little bit of a couple of your highlights. What have been some of your favorite things that you've done so far in town and in the area?
I mean, for one, just being around the race atmosphere. So I've been to the start of both TDS, the 90-mile event with like 31,000 feet of gain, and then also the start of OCC in Orsayer, Switzerland. So yeah, I mean, I think I've been to a lot of races over my lifetime, like ultra running, trail running, track, everything. But that is one of the few events where like just being at the start line like was literally giving me goosebumps. Like even feeling emotional. Everybody's excitement, and just you can see how passionate everybody is about like the running, and like seeing the families, seeing their runners come through the finish line. Just so proud of their runners, and hugging and high-fiving, and so I think that's just been really a unique experience.
And that is something that UTMB, that is something that I, especially this year, observed in such a powerful way, how UTMB, like races in general, especially race events that have multiple race distances and multiple events, they usually sort of stagger the starting line and try to get all the runners out more or less at the same time. And then depending on the distance, well, they finish when they finish. Where in UTMB sort of reverses it and tries to really strategically figure out when do runners arrive at the finish line. And that's when we start, we calculate backwards, and that's when we start. That's why CCC starts at midnight or something, right? I mean, there are a couple of races that have seemingly odd starts, because it makes really sense for CCC. The top runners are arriving now in Chamonix just an hour or two after UTMB start, which is perfect for the finish line atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think that's something really smartly, strategically done, and how they're weaving the entire week together, right? When does a race start? When does a race end? How do we sort of keep excitement for spectators in Chamonix sort of at the peak, right?
Yeah, I think they do a good job of keeping each event kind of its own special, unique experience. And even from a competitive level, I feel like each distance, I think their goal is to make each distance kind of like at least from the competitive standpoint, like the championship for that distance, right? So like OCC would be kind of like the 50K World Championship, CCC the 100K World Championship, UTMB the 100-mile World Championship. So, and they even added for the first time this year a 15K starting in Courmayeur. And keep in mind 15K with like 4,000 feet of gain. So I think that's cool too. Adding in the short distance too, to appeal to those runners or runners who want to maybe kind of dip their toes into this event. Based
on the races that you've seen over there, which one would appeal to you the most?
I think my gut instinct would probably lean toward the CCC. I mean, it's somewhere between 50K and 100K is kind of like my wheelhouse, I suppose. Yeah, maybe CCC.
It is interesting, right? Because over here, we sort of focus on UTMB, the 100-mile distance, because we love the 100-mile distance so much. But over there, as you say, the OCC is super competitive. And the CCC is also incredibly competitive. And so the races sort of stand on their own. And it's not just all about the UTMB.
Yep, totally. Yep.
So, spend any time in the vendor village? How is that experience?
I did, yeah, definitely. Yeah, open up my mind on like what all the other non-US brands that are out there with different packs and waist belts and different types of poles and shoes. Yeah, definitely pretty huge event or expo. Like, I think they call it like a salon. Um, there's, yeah, I think a couple dozen vendors for like different events, like race events around the world. And then of course, yeah, all the different brands, with Hoka being kind of the big primary sponsor, and then like the main tent, which I think was all kind of operated by Ironman. So I think they're recently bought UTMB.
No, they didn't buy it. They did
or
a strategic partnership for the international expansion, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're owning sort of the international, all the races that are not in France, essentially, right? I think that's kind of their piece. But the UTMB in France, and I think also the brand name is continued to be owned by the UTMB group. So you saw some brands. What brands did stick out to you that you hadn't really been aware of over here, that you don't necessarily can easily pick up at REI or Running Warehouse?
There was just so many. I mean, so many that I can't quite remember the name of. But like something like Compressed Sport, I think it's pretty big over here. Definitely not quite as prominent in the US. So they have like their packs, and like I think apparel as well, waist belts, and then I also checked out the normal booth.
Yeah, let's talk about Normal. Exactly.
I don't know a whole lot about them, but obviously Killian's newest brand. So I mean, seemingly it was a much more simple shoe design than I was anticipating.
Did you actually touch it, feel it, lift it up?
I did, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I've heard somebody saying that the shoe felt like it didn't have a lot of support. It felt really soft.
Yeah, I kind of got that sense too. Yeah, just from holding it. I didn't wear it, but I'm sure it's a solid shoe. But yeah, definitely more simple or simplistic than I was anticipating compared to, I don't know, something like the Hoka shoes or Solomon.
Yeah, I'm curious. I really don't like the color combinations currently, so I'm very hesitant about it. I'm excited how smartly and aggressively they push into the market. I'm worried that the price point is going to be on the Speedland range, where it's just going to be one of those like, oh, thanks for playing, right? That's not a shoe I'm ever going to wear. But I am obviously excited they're moving, and I'm a bright colored shoe wearer, so I'm a little bit black and white. It really looks very pedestrian. I mean, from the photos on Instagram, it looks like a sneaker you pick up at Target, right?
I could see that. I prefer a little more pizzazz in my shoe.
There we go, right? Exactly. Well, we'll see. Yeah. Okay, vendor village. So food. I mean, with so many people in town, I mean, I don't know, what, 30,000 spectators and 10,000 runners or something like that. Like, I mean, the numbers are insane. Where do you, this is sort of a practical advice, but also personal experience. Where do people go to get food? How is it? Are the lines insanely long? Is it super complicated? And I mean, I'm curious about how this scales up, right?
Yeah, I mean, for one, it definitely seems like everybody who's working in hospitality, restaurant, customer service, like just from my interactions, like I can just tell many of them are pretty stressed out, like just getting hammered with customer, like just every day. So I kind of feel for them, like just trying to be patient with them, and because they do seem a little bit overwhelmed. But yeah, there's plenty of grocery stores. There's like Super U is kind of like the biggest one here, so that's I just walk down there, and then yeah, just spend like you can get a lot just for like 30 euros, um, just for like a few simple meals back at the Airbnb. Yeah, it is quite a zoo. I'll say that. And then even just trying to go out for dinner. Try to get like last night we tried to get to a pizza place that was open from like 7 to 10. And then I don't know, we got there around 7:30 and they were like, oh, nope, no, totally full until 9 o'clock. It was like, nope, like no food for you. So
No food for you.
And that, yeah, it was just, you gotta get there early, I guess, or make a reservation. But and there are quite a few restaurants. You can definitely find something though. Yeah, it's pretty long lines at most. Yeah, kind of sit down restaurant or long waits.
What's your favorite food you've had over there? Have you had the Orangina drinks that everybody is posting about?
I did actually during one of my long runs. We previewed the last 12K or so of the OCC course. And got to like the where the gondolas or like where you can take the gondola down. And yeah, just ordered some M&Ms and Orangina mid run. So that was definitely a nice perk just to buy these snacks in the middle of your run. I didn't make the mistake of running like with the Orangina for like half full. It was like, oh yeah, it's like I kind of thought it was just like more like a juice sort of, but then it's like I open it up and it's just like bubbled over, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of like a soda.
Yes,
but that didn't go over too well.
Yeah, but you're speaking to something cool, right? That these high alpine runs that you can do all have gondola exit points and they have huts, and so you can very much strategically run to places, and yeah, you just need to bring your credit card essentially, right? Bring some euro and you're able to
bring euros.
Yeah, exactly. Get some food, refuel if you want to, right? Which is I mean, for a serious run, not practical, but it's convenient and it's fun because you can run light.
Yeah, even in being totally unfamiliar to the area, I still feel like pretty safe. And like if I get lost, there's I don't know, at least enough hikers or runners out there, or just getting to a refuge and getting some good snacks there. And some even have like, I mean, you get a beer or wine, coffee, soda, pretty much anything you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's clearly the Alps. Are clearly no wilderness, right? I mean, you don't have to bring your Garmin InReach and your space blanket when you're running in accessible pieces. This is different when you're doing TDS or so. There are definitely
right
routes you can take where you exposing yourself to the elements, and you are then very quickly in the mountains, right? Let's talk a little bit about your professional capacity. You've had sort of two main jobs, right? You were supporting one of your runners that you're coaching who ran the OCC. And then you were there in support for Matt running TDS. Yeah, speak to that a little bit. So if you're a support person, how is it getting around, preparing, planning for this and stuff? How did it go?
A little tricky for sure. I kind of want to make like a little playbook for somebody who wants to crew for a future year. Another tough thing too is that because there's been more, I assume with more and more participants and more people in town, they've changed some of the rules, or like even a couple of years ago on like just crewing, or like like for Orsayer, like they weren't allowing any cars to go inbound, or even the first two aid stations. So just I assume maybe some exceptions for like someone in media, who wants to film, but otherwise, yeah, they're saying like if you're going to go at the start of OCC, you have to take the bus. So yeah, I was basically
which is actually something that in a lot of valleys in the Alps, they're increasingly, especially the smaller, narrower ones, increasingly completely disallowing cars altogether, right? Unless you're a resident, and you're absolutely never under any circumstances able to drive up there, right? So this is a big trend in the Alps. And so how does UTMB then manage, especially if you go up to the start of OCC, the runner doesn't need a bus back. How do you then get to your next support stop from there?
So you're basically at the mercy of the new UTMB bus system, which as far as I know, I believe is their first year they've implemented this. So there's a bus schedule with each race, and but you have to buy you can buy a bus pass for each individual race, or you can buy spend extra euros for full access for every race. So I think it was about 25 euros for OCC and maybe 50 euros for TDS. The problem was there's also they sold out. So I think it sounded like a lot of people who wanted to crew couldn't even buy a pass. So that was just an extreme shortage issue right there. And then even just to be on a crew, you have to have they call it assistance. So you have to get this assistance pass with their name on it and barcode and everything. And so yeah, it's pretty very well, very moderated, I guess. So for me to even enter the assistance zone or A station, your runner has to be within 10 minutes of coming into the A station, because they can track each runner on the live tracker and this app it's called the Live Info app. So, so yeah, another pro tip for anybody who's going to crew is definitely bring an extra portable phone battery charger. So even though I had a wall outlet ready to go, I couldn't find one anywhere. So, because you have to show proof of your assistance pass before even going in, or pre-print it. So it's just kind of scary to think that my phone battery's getting down to 20% and Matt wasn't there yet. Just the thought of if my phone died, then that could totally ruin someone's game race plan if their crew can't even go in. So
yeah. But, no, absolutely. How frustrating would that be, right? If you're sort of expecting your crew and then your crew can't get in, it's interesting. There was this meme floating around on Instagram showing the difference between the aid station in the US and the aid station at UTMB, right?
I saw that.
And it's
it's totally true. 100% true.
It's like a bottle of Coke and a bag of chips for people to collectively grab out of it. In Europe,
yep.
You've got ta-da!
Yep, it's a smorgasbord of cured meats and cheeses, and they have fruits too. And as far as I could tell, I think Kristen was saying that she didn't see any electrolytes at any of the aid stations. So another thing to keep in mind is bring your own electrolytes.
Oh wow, yeah. So they all go off of espresso and Coke.
I think so.
Well, yeah, this is very interesting, right? Especially for a runner that isn't familiar running in these races, how you sort of need to prepare yourself and to seeing how, well, I don't know, we can talk about it, why American women seemingly are able to figure it out and American men are not, right? But increasingly, especially that on the top field, there is a aspect where crewing is really, really important. A friend of mine, Scott, ran UTMB last year, and he pretty much did it without support. He just went in and took care of himself. Which is possible, but I don't think it's possible to win a race like that anymore, right? You need to have a very dedicated team that really is there at all the places to take care of you. Again, when you just think of the numbers, I mean, that's probably the way they have to manage it with the whole access pass thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is sort of a like, I don't know if there's any other way of how you could potentially manage these masses that are coming through.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rent a car. It's just, it's a pretty, I think it comes with a pretty expensive price tag, and then it's just kind of a matter of taking a chance on finding, for somebody new, that finding, like, hoping there's going to be a parking spot available, or being prepared to, like, hike in, walk in a half mile or mile or more just to get close enough to your runner.
Yeah, and I mean, these parking spots in those little villages are either central parking spots that are expensive and you always have to have paid parking, or they're like super narrow on the side of some mountain road or something like that, right? And so if you have a rental car and you're not familiar with, I don't know if that is a good idea. So going back practical, so you crewed for OCC. How hard was it then to be in time for your runner at the different support points? Because they run a trail, but obviously not along a road. So you have to like potentially go up and down a valley in order to get to the right point in time.
So yeah, I should clarify, like, there's actually no crew available, like, allowed for OCC. So my plan was just to just be at, there's like 2 or 3 stations in between that you can just cheer on your runners. But I guess they're very strict about, no assistance allowed, like not even be on the course with them to like film for a little bit. So no crew allowed. And then I personally had kind of some mishaps with the bus system yesterday. OCC kicks off, and then you wait an hour and a half for the first bus to even take off. And then, my plan was to stop into a town called Argentière, and apparently they changed the course this year as well. It's different from last year. So there was a bus going into Valercine, which I think was part of last year's course, but not this year's. But it was part of, for some reason, it was still left into this bus schedule. And it just didn't make sense to stop there because there's no runners coming through. So the bus pulled through, and he's like, "Is anybody getting off?" And we're like, "Nope, let's keep going." So we keep going. And then, so Argentière comes up. I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready to get off. I'm kind of towards the back of the bus. And then all of a sudden the driver says something in French really quickly. And I didn't quite make sense of it. And then all of a sudden he just keeps driving. And before I even had a chance to like say something, he just like drove right through town. So he didn't even stop at the actual, there's supposed to be a bus stop, but he didn't stop. So that was frustrating for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about it. Think about this, the logistics, the dimensions of all of this as somebody who manages a couple little trail races here in the area, and trying to imagine how massive the organizational structure around this entire event is. It is absolutely insane. So you ended up then pretty much only being able to see her at the finish line?
That's right. Yep. I mean, even like the buses to go back on the course weren't showing up either. So I don't know, it was just like at least from my view, it did feel like, for what seemed like a pretty organized schedule, like laid out, like I think things didn't quite go to plan. The TDS was TDS was a little bit better, I guess. yeah, and that one kind of similar experience where yeah, you wait about an hour and a half in the middle of the night for that first bus to leave. But like they would like the first bus would show up, like fill up super quickly, and there's just like hordes of people trying to get onto one bus. And then yeah, then guys gotta be a little patient, and another bus did come like 5 or 10 minutes later, and then then we all got dropped off at this really small bar like on this mountain pass at like 2 a.m, and then just not it's just like another one where you can only like see runners come through. You can't crew quite yet, so it's just like hordes of people crammed into this small hut. Everybody trying to order a hot chocolate and some focaccia and and just like super crammed.
This is kind of a funny perspective, right? Because we usually only hear the runner's perspective, but sort of the logistics around trying to crew and manage is nuts.
And meanwhile, like because I wasn't planning to crew, I actually didn't even pack like a down jacket for this trip because I was like, well, I'm not planning to be up in the middle of the night crewing for anybody, so it should be fine. Because I'd been asked to crew Matt kind of last minute because like the rest of his family got sick, so huddled into this bar, drinking probably the best hot chocolate I've ever had in my life, though, which I gotta say is it's like real hot chocolate where you can actually see like melted bar in your cup as opposed to like cheap cocoa powder.
Yeah, that's no, what is it, Swiss Miss or something like that? Like
exactly.
Powder over water or water over powder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is probably like milk from the cow behind the hut 3 hours prior.
So yeah, wait a couple more hours, and finally we get onto the next connecting bus, which was a little bit confusing, but eventually found the right one. There's like the bus drivers didn't quite have their story straight on which was like going to be the next correct bus, but got into the next one, which was like the first one that the first crew access aid station. That they call it the one where they have like a base camp, so they have just this huge just like a basketball gym, and so you go in there and there's like everybody's just napping essentially, just kind of playing more of the waiting game. Not super cozy. I mean, there's like literally like 10 cots for like, I don't know, 100 people. So those 10 people slept well, and then maybe a few yoga mats. So you can wait in there. And then, again, another pro tip is like, I thought I brought enough snacks, but I got a little too hungry, and they had advertised having like refreshments at this place, but there's definitely nothing for that for anybody crewing.
Yeah, it's not like you're casual crewing, and so you can just also the way, American aid stations are, if you will, where you can just like, oh yeah, I'll grab a handful of M&Ms, right? I mean, nope. If you're not a runner, you don't get the food.
Yeah. And when I eventually did get in, when Matt had come in, I was just like, went over just to grab like 2 small like banana bits, like cut up banana, like just no big deal. Like, there's a huge giant bowl of it, and then immediately they'd come over and just like basically slap my wrist, like just like nope. Like, I don't get any. I'm like, no, I'm so hungry. Like, yeah. They literally, you literally have to be like in that town. You had to be definitely self-sufficient. There wasn't. It just so happened not to be any refuge or bar in that area. So
that's an important point for anybody. I mean, as you're saying, you want to write a playbook. I mean, this is sort of an important aspect for people considering going over there and crewing, right? Who really, you need to as much preparation. You don't necessarily need as much physical training, but you need to do as much preparation of how do you get from A to B. Where do you need to be? How self-sufficient do you need to be? Because, it's in the freaking middle of the night, right? I mean, TDS starts at midnight. And so these first crew spots, I mean, of course, at 4:00 in the morning, there won't be any restaurants open. There won't be any grocery stores open. It's not like you can casually walk a couple hundred feet down the street, right? I mean, you are in the mountains, and you're running your own race there.
Hmm. Yeah. Of course, yeah, you got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. So yeah, I think, yeah, bring a little bit more food and drink than you might anticipate, like like a full like an actual meal, not just little snacks. Um, but yeah, but then yeah, unfortunately with yeah, we Matt Urbanski came in, but then yeah, unfortunately had to pull the plug at that aid station, so I wasn't obviously able to continue on with the rest of the. There's like two more kind of major crew access aid stations on the course, uh, so yeah, he ended up.
So unfortunately for him, he had to stop his race early and DNF. You DNF too, in that sense that you didn't get the full experience of how it would have been
Right.
to
Yeah.
jump back onto the bus and find the next.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
mean, this would have been quite an ultra for you too, right? I mean, you would
Sure.
have been almost as many. I mean, you would have been as many hours on your feet as he was running, right?
Right. The different kind of fatigue though, just with yeah, just very limited sleep, taking essentially taking naps on the bus when you can in between. Because some of the bus rides in between can be anywhere from like I think 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So you sleep during those opportunities, and but yeah, I mean, I was curious just to experience the rest of what the rest of the course is like, and what those other towns were like along the way. Uh, but yeah, I think yeah, Matt kind of seemed to come down with some sort of virus like the day before, and just had like yeah, super low energy and like increased fatigue throughout the day. It just got worse and worse. So we took like two long bus rides to eventually get back to Chamonix.
Well, I mean, this is why I pulled the plug last year at Ultra Tour Monte Rosa, because I was there at that last aid station at 3:30, I think, was cut off or so. And I was thinking, I was so far remote, and I mean, I was in a town, or not remote, but so far removed from the finish line where my family was at too. And I was trying to figure out if I, like 20 miles later, or 10 miles later, pull the plug, I'm on some mountain. The gondolas will already be shut off for the evening. I don't know how to get back down, right? I mean, the logistics, I tend tantalizingly simple, because you're like, oh, it's Europe, there is access everywhere. But in reality, these valleys are long and deep, these drives are really far up, these gondolas don't run all the time, right? So it is actually not as easy as it appears when you quickly look at it, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Your official capacities were over sooner than you wanted to, and then you had today to kind of get ready for the start of UTMB. How did you sort of experience
Yeah.
these last couple days?
Yeah. With the first 3 days here, kind of overcoming the jet lag, and then spending most of the night awake for current TDS. So I was just trying to get my sleep schedule back on track today, for the last 2 days. So I think I accomplished that with yeah, like an 11-hour sleep. So feeling human again, able to focus again. So um, yeah, I think just yeah, took it easier today to go on another exploration trail run, and yeah, I mean, I'm a coach too, so coaching never ends. So spend some time catch up with my athletes that I coach, um, and then yeah, grocery shopping, and then went down to the UTMB start, which was yeah, as expected, just so much energy, crowds of people, even even like a mile out from the start, it's just the streets are totally lined up.
I mean, it's such a unique experience, right? I mean, unbelievable to be able to create such an event seemingly, right? I mean, they have not been around for 50 years. There is no history. There's not even that much corporate power there yet. The media is minimal. It's only on YouTube. It's, trail running is still so much of a niche sport, and yet Chamonix has found a way to bring tens of thousands of people to this tiny village.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds over the years, but I think it's here to stay for another decades to come, I'm sure. So I think I was kind of curious of like just so many people in town. Like I kind of do wonder if like the UTMB stone system might like limit the number of participants, I suppose, but that's not necessarily going to limit the number of people who just want to come to town and spectate.
Do you have any thoughts, given how trail running, you've grown up with trail running here in the Pacific Northwest, and you've run all the races. You've run the big ones, the prestigious one, Chuckanut, Gorge, but you've also run the little sort of community runs. How does this to you compare? Does it feel like overwhelming and too big? Is it one sort of bridge too far, or do you feel like it's good that our sport has such a spectacle? That doesn't mean that every race has to become that.
Yeah, I think overall it's good for the sport, and as long as like there's still opportunity for those smaller town grassroots events too. So I think they both can coexist ideally, and just having the opportunity to have those different experiences. So I don't think I'd want every race to be a UTMB style of event. That'd just be just too much. I think as a first, even just spectating it did feel a little bit overwhelming, just working through all the logistics, and Kristen kind of expressed some of that too. Like part of her was just like, I just want to run. Like that's it. It's so simple. I just want to run. So I can get that too, that side of it. But I think I have, at least for me personally, an appreciation for the bigger marquee events, but then also just as much appreciation for the really simplistic events where it's just draw the start line with some chalk and then just say go, and then you're on your way. So
I mean, the beauty is that literally there's not a single sport where, as sort of the upper echelon becomes more and more professional, it discourages people from partaking in the little community events, right? I mean, as big as the World Master Marathons get bigger and bigger, that doesn't mean that the little world majors, that doesn't mean that the little community cross-country races and fun runs and marathons are getting any less enticing for the people who just want to set the goal for themselves, right? People are still playing soccer every day, even though the Champions League is getting bigger and bigger every year, right? I think the unique difference that our sport has, and it doesn't exist in many other sports, is that we can tie our shoes and be at a starting line of a little trail run that has a chalk line as a start, and we can use that particular race as a training ground to get to UTMB. UTMB is at this point not locked up for us. It might be in the future, but for right now, it is still possible, right? You can go back to Bainbridge, and you need to strategically find a couple of races to run in order to get your points and your stones and stuff. But from a training point of view and from a focus and dream, you can still run UTMB.
For sure.
Right? Wherein you might love basketball, but you will never play in the NBA.
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good point. And I was
right?
just on the bus over to TDS. I was talking to a runner who I believe was based in Indonesia. Um, yeah, maybe Indonesia or Singapore. So yeah, I asked him about his training, and yeah, he said I think his third time training for one of the UTMB events, and he said like the biggest climb in his town was like only like 200 or 250 meters. So he just did, yeah, he just did tons and tons of repeats in order to get his vert for TDS. Um, but yeah, he still had the opportunity to line up at the biggest stage. So
How does it feel being in such an international atmosphere where the American runners make up a big contingent, but they're sort of the minority?
yeah, I think it's just great to get other perspectives. I mean, obviously there's some language barrier, but you can still, I think you just still find a way to try to communicate or you know speak some like broken, you know, whatever the other language is. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool to get other people's perspectives and um, yeah, just where they came from. And
Let's talk about UTMB. The race is underway. I haven't looked since we started recording, but I mean, it's still so very early, and we're like, what, less than 3 hours into the race. What's your feeling? Who's gonna take it home? Where do you feel like how is this gonna play out?
yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's obviously super early in the race. Let's see. I guess so for on the men's side, yeah. I think there's obviously the big storyline of like, yeah, no American man has yet to win UTMB. So, but I think somebody like Jim Walmsley and Zach Miller, I think still have definitely a good shot. But at the same time, yeah, anytime Killian lines up, it's kind of hard to bet against Killian. So
I mean, it really is. It really is, right? When he announced that he wasn't feeling that great, I was a little worried because just from a storyline point of view, I think this is such a stacked field this year to be able to watch these top runners battle it out is super, super exciting. So it's great to see Killian at the start. Yeah, I'm just looking at where they're at, but it's still, right? I mean, people are saying the race begins in Courmayeur, so I think we still have several hours before we have to really take this, make any like serious projection on how the race is unfolding.
Yeah, so far,
right?
I mean, I saw Jim and Zach working together in third and fourth place, and I think, I think Tyler Green, David Laney, Tim Carlson.
Tim Tollefson, right? I mean, I always feel a little bit bad that he is always at the start line with this big smile, and people sort of are not really taking him serious. He has so much experience at UTMB that I think from an experience point of view, he's probably one of the strongest runners to be at the top, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think must be like his fourth or fifth time showing up. I think he's had one or two podium finishes. But I do feel optimistic that maybe there could be maybe like 3 American men in the top 10 this year.
And of course, we talk about the American men, and if they have a chance of winning it, and then we look at the women leaders, and Katie Scheide is already in first place again. An American is already leading the women's race.
Yeah, and definitely rooting for Caitlin Gerben from the Northwest. And then
she's in 12th, running with almost Hillary Allen.
Yeah, Hillary Allen, and I just saw this just now actually, but Sabrina Stanley is just announced that she's not racing because of a COVID-19 diagnosis. Which was, yeah, sad to see because she was actually she foregoed Hard Rock to race UTMB, and so it sounded like both her and her partner Avery Collins both got COVID. I know she was feeling very confident on winning UTMB and maybe even going for the course record. So
this is something that I've been observing, especially with Matt and his family coming down, right? That COVID isn't over yet, and bringing tens of thousands of people into a town from all over the world in a time where last year I felt like we were still very hesitant and cautious about social distancing and wearing a mask and everything, right? But this year it feels very much like everybody's pretending things are over, and clearly COVID isn't over, and seeing people dropping, it's not a deathly disease anymore, but it's still super bummer if you travel all the way over there. If your sponsor pays or not, you want to line up, and if you then end up getting sidelined, it's it's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and it seems like definitely a trend of more and more Americans, spending their entire summer here too, just to dedicate their entire training block to train on the specific trails and get as familiarized as possible.
Do you have a sense of why that would be important, aside from sort of that 2 weeks prior acclimatization period with sort of getting, that travel fatigue out of your system and getting comfortable with the logistics around it? What do you think, in your opinion, is the real benefits of being able to train on these trails?
I would say the mental confidence and familiarity of just knowing what exactly to expect, especially if you're previewing the course, I think it's less of a shock too. Like if your brain can kind of map out what exactly you're going to face, I think it's going to be more advantageous. So I think it's kind of shown in my own racing too. Like anytime I've lined up at a race for a second time, I just assuming I'm in similar shape and assuming things are about this relatively the same, I usually just race so much better. So in the case of UTMB, it's going to take several weeks to familiarize yourself to 106 miles of trail.
I mean, clearly the women didn't need that, right? I mean, Chrissy Moll shows up in 2003 and just wins it outright, or wins the women's race. So the women didn't need that preparation. Yeah, the American women, they feel comfortable on these trails. I like ribbing the American man for having not being able to unlock it, because it's such a big storyline, right? It feels almost like, the Boston Red Sox curse or something like that. Like, will Jim be able to do it this year, right? And there's so many top American men running together, but
maybe we talk about it too much. We just stop talking about it, and then maybe one of the guys would do it.
I know. Well, and because it's 106 miles and because everybody has a different running style, like there is no benefit in sort of teaming up, right? So if Zach and Tim and Jim would sort of like say, okay, we'll run as an American sort of team, it doesn't work in trail running. You're not getting the benefit over 106 miles if you would really sort of like, okay, we'll carry each other to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you need to run your own race and set the pace that's going to feel good for yourself. It becomes more and more important as the longer the race, especially with something like circumnavigate Mont Blanc.
All right, Keith, this was an amazing kind of view of somebody who's never been Chamonix before, gets dropped somewhat spontaneously into town and sort of takes it all in and tries to navigate it all. And well, I can't wait to connect with you back home and see how you're going to adjust your training plan to see. Oh, look, somebody just signed up for a running stone race. How did that happen?
Yeah. Hopefully there are a few more in the US. Like, I think right now I'm sure there'll be a couple more, but right now it's like either like Speed Goat or the Canyons. I don't think there's anything in the Northwest quite yet. I could almost foresee like maybe, I'm just predicting, but like something like Squamish 50. I feel like that could be a good course for
Wham.
Or Wham, yeah.
I think Wham is good because Wham has 100-miler. They easily could become a stone race, and that would be very, very convenient for us, right?
Yeah, much closer drive for sure.
All right, so Gary Robbins, in case you're listening, I don't know. I haven't talked to race directors, like Speed Goat. I know that Karl Meltzer actually sold the race. So that particular race really sort of was passed on, and I guess Ironman UTMB now owns it, right? At Western States, you can get stones, but obviously Western States is Western States, so they wouldn't, hand the race over. And so I'm curious how this kind of partnership ends up, what possibilities for partnerships there are, because obviously you don't want to be a race director, build up a great race just to hand it over, right? Because I'm pretty sure the dollars that are being transferred are not lucrative enough for you to just, say thank you very much. And so we'll see how this all plays out. Well, Keith, I know it's after 9:00 over on your end. I don't know if what are you doing? Are you going to bed, or are you going back down to the finish line and watching some more CCC runners come in? What's the plan now? Hey, heading to town for some, I don't know,
maybe slightly
another drink or so.
Maybe get a warm drink, and it's literally a 3-minute walk to the finish line. So I don't know, or maybe I'll just pull up the live feed and geek out more on UTMB.
I love it. Then we'll meet each other virtually on the live feed. I will let you go, Keith. Thank you so much for giving us this perspective straight from Chamonix.
Of course, and thank you again for having me, and looking forward to connecting with you again.